I love this. So any book, they have to,
And every week I add the new skill and, so it kind of starts out
I
with
know.
that.
Gosh.
I mean, they don't always do it.
No.
They've
That's such a great purpose for reading too. Like mine are kind of getting like burn out.
Yeah, I'll send what I have to you.
Thank you.
It's just the library center.
Yeah, that.
Okay.
I'm sure her hair's going up there.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
We're just gonna go ahead and get started on the workshop framework. This week is gonna be around phase 2, but the first couple of slides just kind of review the phase 1 and, kind of what the goal of the workshop model is. And again, like I said last week, I hate to kind of read it to you, but it helps me kind of frame what to think about, and sometimes I know when people are sharing with me, it helps to hear it read out loud. The ultimate goal of the workshop approach is to enable learners to acquire strategies for self-regulating their learning. And the workshop approach is to encourage students to develop positive, constructive habits of thinking, and in doing so, refine their strategies, deepen their comprehension, and expand their knowledge. And the bottom one, which is one I kind of take to heart that I need to keep remembering, is it's our job to create learning conditions where we create the good habits and try and break those bad habits of reading. So with all these workshop approaches, whether it's reading, whether it's writing, whether it's the content area or math, our job is to help them create good habits. And that's kind of the underlying purpose behind all of this. Last week we talked about phase 1 and what it entails. And the anchors of phase 1 are the mini lesson at the beginning and the share time at the end. And everything that's in between, there's no order in which to do it. You just kind of have to look at what your kids need and kind of plan accordingly. So there's small group instruction, there's independent practice or working with peers, and there's one-to-one or small group conferences. So thinking back to the phase 1, I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to kind of talk with people around you about what might be some reading workshop phase 1 ideas you've considered implementing in your classroom. So thinking back to last week, just set the
We
time
might
for
need
2
to
minutes
talk
and then we'll
about this
share.
together. That wasn't here.
Will you hear?
They were in many lessons.
Yeah. So just like thinking about your little parts of like what even just yesterday talking about the senior opinion writing statement, open topic. That's a mini lesson.
Oh, and then the next day,
Yeah. Talk about your
Reasoning.
supporting details.
yeah.
They shouldn't last too long.
I have trouble envisioning a small group instruction like writing, or is this a reading? Oh, this is a reading. We'll switch gears. Never mind.
They started my highest reading group. Which they really enjoy.
It's just,
You do like,
Is that what you do?
I do
I mean,
love
I
like
do
it.
You love it? So when you do it, do you have them go and then they come and talk and then they go? Do you do it like that, like they?
And then I
Or,
still
Mm.
use, because I need to have my kids read a lot, the maps and that. And if there was from the program, something.
But in,
That's
yeah.
what I talked about too.
in the centers that I have, because I have 20 centers, they're doing all those components, like there's a buddy reading center, there's a listening center, there's a read to self center.
Yeah.
Like, I think
Yeah,
there's just,
I
I
think,
want more than that, I want more than just the
I'm not
5, so.
quite.
And they, and yours don't do, they do like 3 a day, right? 4 a day. And mine do 6 a day, so like 12 minutes each, like read to self, read to partner, listening, word work,
I read a story with them, and we just
iPad.
have, they talk about the connections that they make, or they talk
What's my
about
other
the
one?
So do they do the same ones every day?
because they do still need to practice.
Yeah, just in a different order. And and journaling, and the only thing I have to do is change the word work for the day and the journal question. for the
And I know
day.
there's probably half of us that weren't here last week because you guys were gone, but what are some things that you've, considered implementing in the classroom? Anybody wanna share anything out?
I just know I need to give my kids more time to read, actually read. I feel like my centers are not, my literacy centers, do word work and letter work and things like that, writing, but just actually reading,
Yeah.
reading to a buddy and getting them to where they are independent enough to where they're doing that and not just messing around.
Anything else? Michelle, you put some things you shared.
I started my highest reading group on, like, doing a book talk, and so they've really liked that. But I haven't figured out how to conference with them individually, so like right now, a lot of our discussion is just in our group at our reading group time, and then instead of doing individual reading or read to self, then they do an assignment either on their own or with a partner or something, but, I haven't figured out how to do that one-on-one conference, how to figure that out, and then I said it's hard to, implement those book talks with my lowest kids who are still virtually non-readers and working on phonics skill, and it's word by word reading kind of stuff.
One thing I mentioned that I've been doing with our IEP kids or the low kids who can't read the on-level writing, is it the writing workshop book, is I read the story to them and we just talk about the connections that they have. Oh, I know, kind of they think about their thinking while I'm reading. So it gives them experience interacting on a higher level with the text because they won't be able to read it. But they've got great information to share. So we kind of use one of our group times to do that. And Michelle, I mean, remember it says small group conferences too, so even if, that's okay.
Yeah, I figured it was a start, but the video that we watched in the other, that webinar or whatever, he was doing individual conferencing. Like, yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna get to that, but, yeah, they like it. The kids have been writing about it in their journal and they really enjoyed it. So.
It's just a good thing to, I don't know, it's hard to wrap your brain around, and it's good to kind of start doing some things. One thing that I've tried to do with the kids here, our workstation, I used to have them start at the bottom and go up, and I realize my numbers are not the same on both sides. I just noticed that the other day. I only switched one side.
I never noticed.
But I'm having them start at the library center and go down. So when they go to the library center, they pick one book, and we've been talking about making connections. And did a quick mini lesson on, when I look at this book, even starting with the cover, I picked this book because I'm trying to think of the fairy one. Is it up here? Alice the Fairy. We talked about why I picked this one and what thoughts were going through my head, and I put a Post-it note there because I made a connection on that page. And the kids are supposed to read through it once to make connections, and they put Post-it notes where they've made a connection. It could be a question where they could write a question mark on it. It could be a text-to-self connection. It could be a text-to-text connection, a text-to-world. And then I had them yesterday go through and reread it again and this is where I used this yesterday, and had them look at it kind of for language, which is a little bit what we're going to talk about today. Find oi words or ow words or words, and they had to go through and find words like that in that. So they read it for a different purpose the second time.
So, like, how they have the book at the top? What if they don't find all those in that book? Do they get another one, or
No.
that's just ongoing?
No, I mean, this is just the one that they're going to use for this book, and they might not find all of them. And I said you might not, and that's okay. You may have to go through more than one time. And it also helps me too, where if they're putting a long vowel word for a short vowel, tells me, I can pull them back and say, okay, what are you supposed to have here? And that's when usually they're like, So, it's just another good teaching tool, at least for me to know where they're at. But then they do this with their first workstation, and then at the end, we have 15 minutes where they share their connections as a table, and then I'll have a few come up and share up here. Just trying to get myself into the habit of doing this, because that's, I think, for me, the hardest part. We start talking about phase 2 today. It's got some goals as well. So the focus for Reading Workshop Phase 2, it's 40 to 45 minutes. It focuses on opportunities for kids to learn about language. So that's where they use the classroom library to examine books, maybe by a favorite author, to locate specific examples of language. And whatever language example, it would be the example you do a mini lesson on. It encourages students to become language investigators. It allows students to collect and analyze language by recording information in logs for later use in reading and writing workshops. And even as I sit and think and plan for next year, I wonder if we have a language journal and a writing journal and a math journal, I don't know, I'm wondering, do I need to go to Target at the beginning of the year and get 25 red, 25 yellow, 25 whatever, because I know our kids are only gonna come with 2,
Right.
1. I don't know, and again, just thinking out loud, if you think like me and wanna try and plan for next year, I don't know if I'll remember that, but maybe if I share it, you'll remember and we'll remind each other. Allows for in-depth author and genre studies and provides students with opportunities to increase reading volume. Again, because they're reading and they're reading for a purpose. But this time it's a purpose that has to do with language. In the workshop phase 2, again, the anchors are the mini lesson and the share time. And then it's got opportunities for students to read from the classroom library, and then individual conferences or small group instruction, depending upon what the kids need during that time. The next page talks about the mini lesson, and a lot of the mini lessons, I just kind of took what we had from phase 1. It's a whole group explicit teaching demonstration, however it focuses on language, and these are some things that it listed in the chapter that you could do mini lessons on, but there may be others, that are related to kindergarten or first grade that we most likely would add to this. So it could be about sentence, paragraph, or text structures, author writing style, forms and functions of speech, such as concrete nouns and strong verbs, the fluctuations of punctuation in regulating fluency and meaning, the various ways writers use dialogue, word choice, new vocabulary, and other features of language that influence comprehension. Looking at the next bullet, a mini lesson includes an opportunity for students to engage in guided practice and is generally 10 to 15 minutes long. What I have is a CD from the book that our chapter came from, which is an author study, and we're going to kind of watch all of her quick little, they're like 2 to 3 minute lessons on the author study. Let me take a look at that real quick. And as you're watching, just kind of be thinking about what kind of mini lessons you could do in phase 2 that are language related.
Jin Woo, and it's by Eve Lansing. Look at this picture. Isn't it? It is adopted.
I know what adopted is.
Russell?
It means that there's someone without parents, so they give them new parents. That's correct.
Yeah, they don't have a mom or dad, and somebody takes them into their home and adopts them, and they become their mom and dad.
Yeah,
So,
because they put them into a foster home.
well, a foster home, but then they can be adopted. So, were they this happy when they adopted me?
Stop reading my
Okay, I will. I'll go back and fill it in, okay? Now today, when you go over and start reading, I would like for you to find some words that grab your attention And think about the author's message too. And then write those down in your reading log and bring those back ready to share with us. Now, you were talking about the wall reminded you of your dad being gone to the war in Iraq, okay? So we've talked about Eve Bunting books. We've been reading a lot of them. We read The Secret Place and Fly Away Home and The Wall. And how about Jin Woo, where they adopted the little baby and brought it over? Wasn't that so sweet? And remember how he changed his mind and he was glad that he was getting a new baby brother? And how about the memory string when she had a stepmom her mother had died and she had a stepmom and everything. Then today we read A Picnic in October, and remember it's about the family who went to Ellis Island and they went to celebrate whose birthday? The Statue of Liberty's birthday, and that was a special thing for their family that they did every October. Since we've been reading so many Eve Bunting books, I thought it would be a good idea for me to ask you maybe about what you might have learned from Eve Bunting that might help us with our reading. Think about the language she uses in her books, and think about the things in Eve Bunting's books. Have you learned something that would help you with your reading?
She has these strong words.
Okay. How about we say use strong words to help us make connections, really?
Surprise.
On the Wednesday surprise, that's another one, wasn't it? Use strong words to help us make connections. I think that's kind of what you're saying. Okay. What else? Russell?
She almost always puts pictures of outdoors on it, to the covers of her books.
Okay. So she probably likes nature, huh? So, is the setting important in your writing? Is it? Okay, what is setting?
It's about where it is.
Where and?
Why?
No. When, that's right. I like the way she does use outdoors. She is really good at describing trees and nature and even the ducks in that story. She did a really good setting. We'll just put setting. Use good words.
So thinking about so thinking about some phase 2 mini lessons. What might be some phase 2 mini lessons you could do in your classroom?
Did you do character analysis or character traits? You studied, read the story and then study the characteristics of the main character.
I mean, kind of what she's doing, she's talking about strong language, which I think of just like word choice. So reading for a purpose, reading for good words. You know, and even, I mean, this kind of reminds me of some of the things that we've done in Writer's Workshop too, as far as punctuation. You know, I just think of Punctuation Takes a Vacation and how that book has no punctuation. So that might be some sort of mini lesson you do in this. And then when kids go out and read from your classroom library, you have them find books that have good examples of punctuation. maybe where they read and show emotion, or maybe where it has lots of dialogue. It's a different way to think about teaching language.
To me, it makes more sense because they're linking reading and writing. It's almost like you study it in the reading and then you figure out how can then you apply it to your writing. It's almost, to me, like bringing the two together instead of having it two separate silos.
Is there anything in second grade that you think of language-wise that you could do a mini lesson on, or that would make sense for phase 2?
We just worked on like catchy beginnings in our narrative, so we found different examples of books that had the 4 different types, like question, action, and then we read some examples of just the beginning of the book, and then the kids then worked on their own, and then Michelle thought of a showing versus a telling sentence and stuff maybe.
And that would be a great way to send them out to your library and have them find something. It's just it's kind of like, okay, it's new, it's different, you have to kind of wrap your brain around at the beginning and figure out what it is we can do to make it work, but it does make sense. In this section of the chapter, it talked about the 4 different types of reading experiences, and we'll dig a little bit deeper into this next week along with anchor charts. But it was independent reading where students can read a text alone, paired reading where 2 students at different levels read a text together, buddy reading where the kids are at the same level and read together, and then recorded reading where a student listens to a pre-recorded text at an instructional level and reads aloud with the recording. That, I kind of showed that there because while kids are reading, that's when you can have individual conferences or small group instruction based on student need. And during your individual conferences or small group instruction, you can use, or while the kids are reading, you can use that time to observe the kids and scaffold their learning and figure out what they need. And it says to meet with individuals in small groups on an as-needed basis. So while they're doing their buddy reading or paired reading or recorded reading, whatever, you can kind of listen in and see what it is that they need and see who you need to pull and or what groups you need to pull. And then there's a couple more videos that we'll watch, one small group mini lesson and one one-to-one conferencing. And it was even interesting, as I watched her video on this, I couldn't help but think of the Dan Fegelson and Carl Anderson, and was kind of critiquing her a little bit because she does a lot of talking. The kids don't do a lot of talking. And I think one thing we need to remember is to maybe ask questions to get the kids talking and not talk so much as I stand up here and talk. So we'll watch these next 2. What did I have down first?
Okay, I know you all have been reading Eve Bunting books, haven't you? Well, today I've got a whole bunch of books by Eve Bunting that I've checked out from the library, and I was going to show some of them to you. And I'm going to let you pick one of these books to go back and read and write your reading log about it, and then we'll discuss it when we meet after you've read in it, okay? So, library books and books are, sometimes you can look at the cover, we talked about that, and looking at the pictures, and we talked about it, mainly I was thinking about the illustrations, and because she had mentioned it in her book she was talking about. So today I'm going to let you pick which book that you would like to read, and there's these 2, you're more than welcome to check those out, but think about looking at the blurb on the back, and looking at the cover sheet, the words, pictures, all those different ways, okay? And then you can go over and start reading, and after you finish reading, then we'll get back together and talk about the Eve Bunting book, okay?
And throughout this whole section, she is, she's focusing on strong language, and she didn't say that in that little conference, but when this little girl goes back, she's writing down strong language that she heard in the story that she thought was interesting. So here's her conference with one of those kids.
Okay, Morgan, can you tell me about your book? Let me see what you have. You were reading Someday a Tree by Eve Bunting. Can you share with me what you wrote in your blog today?
And so halfway behind us, I can hear a whisper. Alice, Alice,
Who's Alice?
the little girl.
Oh, and so she's in her bed at night and the moon is coming in. And how did that say that again? The moonlight?
Lightens my room, and I see the big jar of acorns on my dresser.
Okay, so the moonlight has come in and she sees this big jar of acorns on her dresser. So, is that important? The acorns? Okay.
Reminds you of the tree.
It reminds her of the tree.
I don't understand about chemicals, but I know this is bad. I hear a whistle behind us.
Oh, so the chemicals could be what? What would the chemicals be?
The thing that killed the tree.
Oh, so the chemicals are the poison. Wow. Well, a lot in this book is grabbing your attention, isn't it? Okay, so are you going to have you read the whole book yet? Is there anything else that you have found that you're going to write down about the book? Well, I definitely want you to bring this to the group and share, because the words that you found were really, really powerful words, and I think that it would grab my attention too. She's such a great writer, isn't she? What's your next book that you're going to read? Have you picked out your next book?
It's called Rudy's Pond.
And who's it by?
And
Another Eve Bunting book. Okay. Good. Well, you keep reading, and we'll let you share about Sunday at Tree at our group time, okay?
See, and it's tough to find videos with, good conferencing videos. And like I said about her, I felt like she did a lot of the talking. The teacher did a lot of talking in that, and I wish she kind of would have let the student do the talking and the explaining. I'm just gonna click on the segment for share time, and you can read over what it says for the slide for that, because this is where the kids all come together and they talk about, the strong language that they
We've been
found in
reading Eve
stories.
Bunting books, and
things
we've
that
been
caught their
looking at her
attention.
message. And today, I ask you to look for words that grab our attention. You didn't have to read Bunting books. Some of you chose to, and some of you didn't. But I wanted you to find how the author used words to grab your attention. Bailey, did you find out anything in your book? Let's go back just a little bit so everybody should be looking at Bailey and listening to her now.
I read Sunflower House.
And who is it by?
Eve Bunting.
By Eve Bunting too.
Moon Shadows River on the ground.
Moon Shadows River on the ground. Ooh. Do those words grab your attention? Don't they just paint a picture in your head? Moon Shadows painting a river on the ground. I can see that. Good job.
The sunflowers whisper all around.
Now how would a sunflower whisper? How would a sunflower whisper? Russell?
The wind blowing through the leaves.
Oh, maybe that sound of the wind going through the leaves. That's such an interesting way that she used those words. Go ahead, Bailey. Tell us anything else.
That's all.
Okay. Who else has something really special? Hey, Ricky, what did you have? Tell us what you read.
I read I Love My Family, and at the end of it, that little boy said, but I don't love my
he doesn't love his grandpa's whiskers? Why do you think he didn't like his grandpa's whiskers?
Because they kept on poking him.
Okay. Have you ever given your grandpa or somebody that has whiskers a hug or and they poke at you? Gabrielle? What did you read? Tell us what words you found.
Sylvester said, I want to be someone else. I don't like my life.
Oh. Did you guys hear what Gabrielle said? Say it a little bit louder, cause that's powerful.
Sylvester said, I want to be someone else because I don't like my life.
What did you say? That he wanted to be someone else, he didn't like his life? That would grab my attention too. Why did he say that?
Because everyone else around him had something special and he didn't.
Does everybody have something special about them though? Yes. Is that what happens in the book? What happens?
He goes out and he finds a magic pebble and he wishes to be something else. And then
Oh.
and he wishes to be a rock and he can't change himself else. And he can't change himself back. Then his family come to a really big stone and that's where he was at. And then he found out it was him.
Oh. Well, does he get changed back at the end?
The magic broke when I heard his voice and the magic broke when I heard the voice.
Okay, you guys were really, really great.
I know we've gone over on time, but so far, thoughts on phase 2?
Why does this stink?
Thoughts on phase 2? I mean, even the good, the bad, the ugly. What do you think? Does it make sense? Is it confusing? Can you see a time to fit it in?
I think it's more authentic. I mean, if you can find the time, I think it's gonna be hard, but the kids are actually reading for authentic, purposes and sharing.
Go take care of your job, Sylvia.
Probably goes back to that, what do we not do that we're doing now to do instead? That's hard for us to decide that there's things here that are probably better than something you've just done for years. So, what do you?
Does it get
What
you
you
thinking
swap
at
out
all?
for it,
Yeah,
kind
how to, it overwhelms me. Michelle, what were you gonna say?
I just, and I was thinking exactly like Michaela, like, okay, what do I get rid of so that my kids can do this? And then it kind of snowballed to be overwhelming, like, it's kind of, I think I need to restructure my entire reading time. You know, right now we go through 4 rotations, my table is one of them, you know, and the things that they're doing when they're not at my reading table, I think are important things, but it's not as, I don't know, flowing or
It's not the reading, writing connection.
yeah, it's very structured, and even though they are reading and they are writing together, it's not that kid-directed, and so it's kind of like, and then I thought, well, maybe I just need to try it and see what happens and give yourself permission to be, I don't have to meet with that group for 20 minutes, and if we all sit on the rug and we talk about a book, that's okay, you know, that was where my brain went.
And I keep kind of going back to what you said about May term that you guys have talked about, and maybe that's the time that we can try some of the, So, all right, that's all I got today. I know we went over time. I'm sorry.